Hello again, everyone. It's me, Justin, for 1001 Movie Reviews You Must See Before You Die. I'm finally back from having had my appendix out, as I mentioned in my little note, if any of you happen to catch that. Yeah, I'm finally back to doing movie reviews. Before I start, I'd like to say that I'm no longer going to be doing these in chronological order. I'm slowly writing the entire list down onto my laptop, and I'm separating them all by era. So what I think I'm going to do is, to mix things up, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to do it one from each era and just go through it that way. So like, it's sorted in chronological order, but it's going to just be by like one movie from the 1920s, one movie from the 1930s, and so on and so on, and then I'll just keep repeating, as I go through the cycle. Anyway, moving on, tonight I'll be reviewing Man with the Movie Camera. It's from 1929. It was directed by, I'm not totally sure how to pronounce this guy's name because it's in Russian. I believe it's Dziga Vertova. There's a D at the beginning of his name, but I think it's silent, so I think his name is Dziga Vertova. And he was the director of Man with the Movie Camera. Okay, here's what I wrote down about the movie. It starts off, well, first off, let me say that this movie isn't really, I don't really think you can consider it a true documentary, because it's really not, I mean, it is documenting something, but it's just everyday life in Russia. It's not like, it doesn't have like a subject like Eisenstein's strike, or Battleship Potemkin, or Nanook of the North, for instance. That actually had a subject in it. This is just a man out with a movie camera taking shots of just everyday life in Russia. So, I mean, in a sense, I suppose it's a documentary, but I think it's more along the lines of an experimentation type of movie, because of all the interesting imagery that comes across in it. Anyway, to begin, it starts off with a bunch of static shots. They almost look like they could be photographs, and it got me thinking, like, oh, this is kind of strange, but this is key to the movie later on, because all these shots you see have to do with like the imagery later on, the moving picture imagery later on in the movie, and so it makes sense why you see all these shots which look like just like photographs. Anyway, the first bit of imagery that I really enjoyed in this movie was this really great sequence where like you see these birds and they're flying, but the interesting thing is it's in reverse motion, so it looks really surreal and really beautiful looking imagery of these birds flying backwards. So it's obviously not the first use of reverse motion. I mean, I'm sure they've used, as I said in another review, actually Haxan, you see there's reverse motion in that movie, so it's obviously not the first time someone's used reverse motion. Anyway, moving on, there's another great shot of this train sequence. The trains play a prominent part in this movie, but this first shot of this train, and like you see a guy, it looks like he's like laying on the train tracks, trying to get off of the train tracks, but then it's revealed because you see all these great like shots of like underneath the tracks, and you see the train passing by overhead, and then there's a reveal of what the guy was doing. He was setting the camera up to get that shot, and I thought it was really brilliant. You think like, oh no, this guy's gonna get hit by the train, and like it just turns out that like it was just a setup for the reveal of how he was setting up the camera to get these really amazing shots of the train passing by overhead of the camera. Anyway, another thing that's prominent in this movie is the use of eyes, and the first time you notice this is with and this will lead me to something else later on in my movie that I want to talk about in my review that I'll talk about later on, where you see an eye, and I couldn't figure out if it was superimposed or not, because it looked so flawless, like there was actually an eye within a shot of the camera lens, and like I couldn't tell if it was superimposed or not. And so there's a lot of eye imagery within this movie, which there's another point I'm going to make a little bit later on in the review. Then I start to wonder, like, because like I said, this takes place it's just a movie about everyday life in modern day in Russia back then. And it got me thinking of like all the people that you see on film. You know, they actually know that I'm pretty sure they're being filmed. And it got me to thinking of like, did these people really realize what was going on with this movie, with this cameraman shooting these shots of them? And like, did they really think that like someday like that someone like me would be talking about this movie and wondering if like they had any inkling that how big this movie would become within movie history? And it also got me thinking of like you know, like Andy Warhol, I think, said it best, like everyone, you know, wants their 15 minutes of fame. And I think when he said that, like things changed, and like people, I think, became more aware of like, you know, I'm being filmed, you know, I'm getting to a little bit of tiny fame. But back then, I don't think people really had an inkling of, you know, of really what was going on when, you know, they were being filmed. So, you know, it really makes you think like how things have changed. You know, I mean YouTube. I mean, look at how big it's gotten. It's amazing. You know, it's just really amazing. You know, to see where we've come since, you know, this movie was made. Anyway, and then it leads me to another to my next little section of the movie where. The movie it's like it starts to slow down, and like and then you see like freeze frames of like images, and like it's going back to the static shots of it looks like just pictures, and it leads into, and it's a clever little lead-in into like a little section of how you see how they were doing movie editing back then. And I thought that was really cool to see how, like, you know, they were actually cutting, you know, with like, you know, scissors, like the negatives to, like, you know, do the editing. And once again, it's really amazing how far we've come. You know, like I make these little movie reviews with Windows Movie Maker, and back then you see how they were doing editing, and it's just amazing to see the progression of like movie editing from like 1929 to like almost 2009. It's really amazing stuff.